Hello, Miami University. My name is Jake White.
And I'm Emmy Husted. And I am here today with Matthew Lillard, who many of you know from the Scooby-Doo movies and my personal favorite, the original Scream. And he will, in fact, be back for the new Scream movie. So, Matthew, obviously, you've been in many movies.
Millions.
You've played a huge role in many childhoods, including my own. How do you prepare for a role and utilize storytelling, not just within those characters, but as a producer and director as well?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for your question. How do I prepare? It sounds really simple. I really focus on memorizing lines. I feel like once you are off book, you can be completely present for whatever happens in the moment. So that sounds basic, but that's number one. And then really trying to understand the needs for the character in terms of the overall scope of the film. And then being ready to work every day. Yeah.
Gotcha. You're a jack of all trades, an actor, entrepreneur, and the occasional tabletop gamer. However, I'd like to follow up on your directorial experience with the release of Fat Kid Rules the World in 2012. In an interview with South by Southwest, you described the online distribution of films as the future of our industry, especially as independent filmmakers. You also said that it's cheaper to make a movie now than it's ever been in 2012. As the industry stands in 2025, where do you fall on the topic of independent filmmaking in the age of streaming services?
That is a great question. Well, first of all, I am not making films right now, right? I felt like I thought I'd be making more films. It turns out they only hire one director, multiple actors, but one director.
Yeah.
And doing independent films is really difficult. It was a 3-year service to the storytelling process. I own the rights of that book for 7 years. At the end of the day, I think I made zero money. And being a father and having to feed my kids, it was difficult. Also, my career has had a really great resurgence in that time too, which is sort of, which has superseded my need to direct.
Right.
I do have 2 films right now. I'm trying to get off the ground, so I'm trying to get back into it. So I'm not really as well versed in terms of the marketing and the sales of independent films. I do think that streaming services offer a good opportunity. I will say this, the upside potential of a streaming service is capped because you're selling to an entity that buys the property and they can do whatever they want with it for however long they own those rights. And, sometimes when a film goes to a market, it can explode. For example, Five Nights at Freddy's, right? It's a movie I'm in. Part 2 comes out this December. That was a little movie that changed the world. I mean, $300 million worldwide. Yeah. We see what Minecraft's doing. Minecraft's had this incredible explosion this past weekend. So, it sort of caps the upside potential of a movie like that. And you look at what happened in the Academy Awards. Those small films go on to win an Academy Award. So. Right. But that said, that's not really my bailiwick right now. So it's not really, I don't know if I'm the best person to be speaking on that topic.
Gotcha.
Sometimes I think you have to know when to be quiet.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
In this media-driven world, kind of piggybacking on that, how do you utilize this idea of innovation and originality?
Well, look, it's again, lovely question. In my life, I've diversified, right? I'm not really good at waiting for Hollywood to give me opportunities to act. And for a long stretch of my career, I wasn't acting. And so I went out and did other things where I created created non-for-profits or other organizations around poetry, slam poetry for kids living in foster care called 5 Slamma. The interaction of philanthropy and a social event called Hive Be Good. So all these other things. I've also created these 2 new businesses. One's called Beetle and Grimm's that we started 5 years ago. It creates high-end gaming accessories for Dungeons and Dragons and other games. And now recently, as 2 years ago, I created a company called Find Familiar Spirits. We build high-end spirit experiences for fandoms. So within those 2 businesses, for sure, we are always looking to innovate our brand identity, how to speak to community, how to grow community. The number one thing to do that businesses constantly are struggling with is how to acquire new customers. Like how do you grow that base? And so we are always looking for innovation. We're always looking for young people and new voices in that market to try to expand our company, right? Like we've had great success, but there's always room for improvement. And so innovation, how you get your messaging out, how to do it authentically. I think that that's brand new sort of in the brand space. Like how do we grow and speak to who we are as a company? Yeah, but and obviously with I think the looming threat, the looming glory of AI is also a really interesting moment for not only us but your generation specifically, and how you adapt and become copacetic with the advent of AI.
So I guess on the topic of entrepreneurship, do you find any parallels with creating a product as an entrepreneur, in the entertainment industry or the entrepreneurship industry? You're creating something for people to enjoy, and there's a lot that goes into that process, from pre-production, production, and distribution of that. Do you find any parallels in that?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with Find Familiar Spirits, our whole idea is to deliver for the fan an experience beyond just a bottle of whiskey, right? So we are delivering to a community. So Find Familiar Spirits, we build high-end spirit experiences for fandoms. With Quest's End, we built a very D&D sort of high fantasy experience. There are 16 drops that happen over the course of 4 years. Each drop is a different chapter in an ongoing saga. So it comes with like a little novella every single bottle that you continuing this journey of this paladin. And so that, again, you're telling story, you're introducing you're introducing art, you're crafting something that reaches across 4 years. You're not just building a bottle to sell to people, right? With something like Macabre Spirits, which is our tequila brand, we went to Mike Flanagan, who did Fall of House of Usher, and that each bottle comes with a novella, a horror story. So yeah, we are always trying to tell story. We are always doing exactly what Hollywood does, which is how do you find something that resonates with people and get it to as many people as possible, and that's at the core of our brand.
As a film and media student, as much of us are, is there any advice you would give us media students like myself on storytelling and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I always think that at the end of the day, there's a thing in meditation called follow your charm, right? I think that when we are storytellers, when we are finding and crafting stories, we have to follow what's interesting to us, because that is what's going to relate to other people. I think so many times, I'm going to be an old man here, but so many times your generation is looking like, how do I get as many hits as possible? What do I do? Like, how do I follow a trend? And my whole thing is like, don't worry about that. Speak your truth and find what excites you, and then that will relate to people authentically, and that's the best way, I think, to generate your storytelling from a point of view from you.
All right.
That's a great answer. Yeah. This is, I guess, can be a personal question.
Yeah.
You. If you can sit down with yourself at any age, first of all, how old would that version of yourself be, and what advice would you give him about his future career aspirations?
Listen, that's a great question. So I was an obese teenager with severe learning disability. I had braces and glasses. And when I was a sophomore in high school, I was playing speak and spell in my special ed class, where kids were all over the spectrum. And so if I could find that kid who was lost and scared, felt like a fraud, was overweight, full of shame, if I could just grab that kid and say, don't worry, it gets better, that's the kid I would talk to. And I think there's a lot of kids like that in the world, right? I think that I'm a dad, I have 3 kids, and I have kids that struggle at every step of the journey, right? Everyone's always going through something at some point. And I just think that with social media, the advent of social media, you're so in it all the time. You're being reflected constantly by other people, your peers, and everyone's showing you the best aspect of their life. And it just doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve you. So many of us are struggling with those reflections. But I would say, I would go back to that kid and just be like, man, it gets so much better. And I just think you have to cast your vision wider and deeper, and just know that it ebbs and flows, and all the good and the bad makes us a full person.
Yep.
And we like full people.
furthering on, like, talking about your journey, what has surprised you the most about your journey through the entertainment industry, from actor, producer, director, etc.?
Yeah. That after so long, I'm still around. You know, the reality is that I think there's so many times in my life where I'm like, well, maybe that was it. Maybe that's my last job, right? And I have now been around for like 30 years, 30-something years. Is that right? Yeah, something like that. 30 years. So the fact that I keep finding a way back in and keep getting opportunities, and that's humbling. It's really lovely. I'm really grateful for it, and it's not many people get to do what they love. I think I was born to do for so long, and so that's the thing I'm surprised about. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
We have to ask about your role as Shaggy Rogers. You know, we all grew up with these films. 2023, you played William Afton in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. How much preparation goes into playing such an iconic character in these massive fan bases? You're a fan yourself of, involved in many communities. What is it like to be a cornerstone in those dedicated communities?
Well, I will say this. Playing Shaggy, I'll start with Shaggy. Shaggy was very big deal, and I knew it was a big deal because I grew up with Shaggy, right? I mean, he's generational, and it's sort of iconic for that, for not only me, for you guys, and for time before us. So that was intimidating. I didn't want to screw it up. I think it was a big challenge to take a two-dimensional cartoon character and try to make it a three-dimensional person out of it. So that was intense. That was like, I rented a studio space. I figured out how to walk like him. I figured out how to talk like him. You were talking about knowing lines and being super prepared. Like, I knew every scene before I got to Australia. It was 6 months. You know, I was physically I was working out all the time, trying to keep my body fresh so I could do all the action. So that was a lot. And, you know, at the time, like, sort of my career took a real nosedive after the second movie, and for a long time I blamed that character, and I hated being part of the movie. And as I've gotten older, and I've realized the impact this had on kids, that, you know, for years I think that DVD lived in people's vans and people watched it forever. And I know that people love the movie now, that I think than even before than when it came out before. So I'm really grateful as I get older and sort of look back on my career. It's like one of the iconic roles, and I'm really grateful to have that. William Afton's a different thing. I didn't grow up with the game. I wasn't really familiar with the fan base. I certainly am now after doing the second movie. And I love it. I love being an understanding that the weight and the value of the characters that you play have way more value to other people. It's not about me. It's about serving a community. Right. And I really relish having those parts because I like honoring the community. I like honoring these people. I like honoring what people love about FNAF, you know? Right. And I love being a part of it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for your question. It was a good last question.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you so much for being here. We sincerely appreciate you and your time.
Yeah.
And if you guys would please follow us on Instagram at MiamiMTN for clips from this interview and more content, that would be great.
If you're not following them, what are you doing? I mean, honestly, get your follow on. Stop screwing it up.
You heard it here first.